What it is, y'all, it's your old boy Pilk, and I'm coming back with more Danmachi. Now, today we're going to be talking about the EX missions, and I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for this video. I have heard a lot of horror stories about this event, and, well, as of Sunday, I had a team that I felt pretty confident in, and yes, the team did muster an A clear. So let's go ahead and show this team off. Now, once again, we are not working on the S clear today. We are just going for an A clear, and this is a team that a lot of people could probably pretty easily put together. Even if you don't have some of these units +2, which most of mine are only +2, that wouldn't have been hard to muster during the anniversary. If you don't have them, +2 with 3 purple stars, go get like a star bond or something like that. You probably have some gnome tickets, but even at +1, they should be able to manage this. It might take an extra turn or two, but they should be able to manage this. So let's go ahead and talk about this team real quickly, because this team is... There are some special caveats to this and things that you may be able to utilize older units for and stuff like that, but let's just go ahead and introduce the team. So first things first, we got this brand new Haruhime. And if you're wondering why the new Haruhime, well, she just makes things so much faster. Literally, we got everything done about 6 turns earlier than we would otherwise normally have acquired this, solely because of her SA gauge charging and her MP healing. Her MP healing is so clutch. So this Haruhime is absolutely necessary. Tied to her, I do have the Eyes unit that does 111% SA gauge charge on the assist side. So if you're paying close attention, basically that means Haruhime up here gives everyone 33% until she does her SA, and then it's 44% SA gauge charge. Finn, who's actually under Helga over there, gets everyone 33%, but Haruhime is going to have a full 111. That's a full 222% SA gauge charge. She's giving herself 66% to everybody else. So the SA gauge charge is absolutely on point. Remember, everybody gets an extra 11% after the SA too, so that's really important to remember. Now, that is that. Helga, who is max limit broken, but doesn't need to be, is really only here for turn 1. She's going to come in, she's going to do her skill 2. That's going to lower physical resistance, and that's going to be really, really, really important, because that physical resistance debuff never gets removed. Though in fairness, we are going to put another one on, but we'll cover that when we get into the actual fight. Helga's here for turn 1. Now, I'm using the swap anklet to get rid of her. I know a lot of people have asked, is there another way to get rid of units? Yes, there is. It's not as pretty. It will cost you the A clear. You only get a B clear. But if I'm totally honest with you guys here, it won't matter too much. The difference is minimal. The only time it really matters is for the S clear. That's about the time it really matters. But I have the revolving amulet here. What you could do instead is you can actually go into the equipment, and under weapons, if we filter this down by ornaments, you can use the War Princess ear cuff, and then you can give her one that, like right here, this one lowers her HP by 90%. I'm not utilizing that for a number of reasons, but that's another option. Basically, that ensures she does her attack and then leaves. In that case, she gets killed off. In my case, literally what she's doing is she's just leaving after her first turn. When she comes, after she leaves, then Melia comes in. We'll cover Melia here in a moment, though. Next up, third person in the list is Elmina. Elmina's coming in because she's got a really good AoE. She's got also a really good single target, which we'll utilize for a much earlier kill than would normally be capable. And she's got a good self buff, and she gives an all allies buff too. So she's a very good unit all across the board. Now, tied to her, I actually have Apollo. And Apollo's here for the physical resistance debuffing. Physical resistance debuffing is to be so important because everybody on this team is physical, with the exception of Haruhime, but she supports, so it doesn't really matter. Lowering physical resistance is going to be critical. Not as critical, though, as what Felice is doing. Over here, tied to Galamus, and Galamus, by the way, does one of the best defensive buffs on the team. He will defend 40 put up a defensive buff 40% for all single and AoE target attacks, on top of the physical and magic resistance that Haruhime is going to put up. So basically, we're going to have resistance against all physical, all magic, all AoE, and all single target attacks. That basically means double resistance for any kind of attack we're receiving, which is going to be super duper duper nice. He also does really good AoE, and on his SA, we get a bit of a better physical debuff, or physical resistance debuff, so it's really nice. Felice, on the other hand, is really here because we have 2 major single target units, or well, 1 AoE that does a good single target, and that's going to get rid of our main foe very quickly. Felice is now 25% for all single target attacks. That means all counters, all single target attacks, everything is going to hit that much harder. So she's an extremely good unit in that regard. If you don't have her max limit broken, pay attention to these two, because that's why I'm really using these guys on the team. Okay, that's our main line. Now, once Helga's done with turn 1, Melia comes in. Melia's got another debuff she's going to apply, but here's the deal. I have Lena attached to her. Now, Lena is only +1. I never got any more bonds of Lena. I didn't pull for her when she came out. I didn't value her because I even said at the time, like, the Earth team needs a huge buff, and they're likely going to get it. Well, they got it exactly as I predicted, and I didn't buy into this unit at the time. So, Earth resistance would normally be down 20%. Unfortunately, because she's only +1, mine's 15%. But here's the big ticket item for her. Poison resistance. Now, poison resistance isn't going to be mandatory per se, but poison resistance will be exceptionally helpful. Poison resistance down 100% would be exceedingly vital to survival in the early portions of this event. Honestly, it's not going to be a huge issue, but they do attack with so much of it. It's just a thing. Now, we will get more ailment resistance later in the fight. We'll cover that when it happens. But for now, we'll probably have a little bit of poison early on. I'm not overly worried about poison. I am running a poison anklet on both Elmina and Lazar. The only reason I'm doing that is because I don't have enough slow anklets to make it really viable. But we'll get to that. Let me introduce Lazar here real quick. Now, Lazar is max limit broken. I kind of wish he wasn't, but do bear in mind, when Lazar drops into the fight, that means I don't really necessarily need to worry about him on from a defensive standpoint. So Galamus can save his big, MP cost attack and not have to worry about Lazar so much. If you do not have Lazar or someone equivalent to Lazar that isn't max limit broken, use the best unit you got for what basically is a big single target unit, but he also removes the strength buff. Remove that strength buff is going to be really super critical. So if you've got a good single target that removes strength buff, great. Otherwise, use Lazar if you've got him. Fantastic unit all the way around. And I'm going to be utilizing Alkitane. I always mess her name up. Basically, screw it up, please. I am going to be utilizing her on this team, even though she's not max limit broken. I could easily max limit break her, but I wanted to show you guys a team that had some assists that weren't MLB'd, because that's often one of the questions I get, is yes, I do recommend using as many MLB'd assists as possible, but in the case of Alkitane, she does earth attack damage 17%. That would be 25%. I'm sorry, would be 20%, not 25%. Was it 20? Maybe it's 25%. I'd have to go look again. Anyway, it would be a much higher percentage. I think it is 25%. Would be 25% if I had that final bond in her. But right now, it's only 17%. Now, she also does Strength and Magic 15%. Would be 20% for Lazar. So Lazar is going to get that buff as well, which is important because Lazar needs, an assist buff. So really, all in all, she's like the best unit to tie to him. So we're gonna get an assist strength buff for Lazar. We're gonna get all units on the team are gonna get the earth attack damage buff. That's why we bring these in last. Is because the earth attack damage buff needs to be applied to everybody on the team. Well, with the exception of Haruhime, but she's got to go on the front line. Whenever you have units this low level, you got to have Haruhime or at least some counter healer on the front line. It's just absolutely mandatory. One thing I didn't discuss is, I did discuss a little bit, is the armaments. Obviously, I'm running the best weapons I've got, but not all my weapons are ascended, I hate to admit. So some of the weapons are kind of... so somebody that have got all the weapons fully ascended, you might actually be getting better numbers than I'm getting. Number 2, this is the big one. On both Galamus and Haruhime, I am running for the first time literally ever, I had to go craft anti-slow anklets. So I have the anti-slow anklet. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, basically when you go into, I'll just back out here one more time. I'll show you. When you go into your equipment, you have different ailment resistance anklets. So here's the deal, guys. You need anti-stun on this team, but Galamus does anti-stun with his skill 3. So that anti-stun is going to be really super important. Now, actually, that does remind me, I need to put anti-stun on him. That's what I really need on him. So let's change. Nope. I'm going to change his equip. I'm going to give him anti-stun. Okay. But on Haruhime and Galamus, they need anti-slow. They're already going to get Galamus's anti-stun. That's going to be native. Okay? There's no way around that. That's just 100% happening. Okay? So Haruhime and Galamus are not going to get stunned. Really, nobody on the front line of the team is going to get stunned. But when it comes to Haruhime, let's go to equip here. Basically, on turns, going to wind up being like 8 and 10. I'm going to have to, or I'm sorry, 7 and 9. No. 7 and 13. Every turn 7, turn 13, and then turn, once again, well, probably won't get that far, but if we get past turn 18, yes, do it on turn 19. We're going to have to reapply the defensive buffs to our units. And if we go too slowly, if we do, because they're I'm trying to explain this to the best of my ability. Because both these units aren't maxed out because their agility stats are so low, and because there's a triple ailment situation, you're getting hit with stun, which is your number 1 hurdle, but Galamus takes care of that. We're getting hit with poison, which isn't a huge hurdle. It is one that counter healing does a pretty good job of mitigating, but also Elmina gets anti-poison, so we don't really necessarily need to worry about either one of those. I do have Elmina with an anti-poison anklet just because I needed something on her. You saw that on Lazar, I just put anti-stun, so that gives me a little bit of time that I don't have to use Galamus's anti-stun necessarily. We'll talk about that when we get into the fight. But, I'm sorry, not yeah. But on Galamus and Haruhime, for the first time ever, I am actually running this slow resistance glorious anklet. I never thought I'd have to use these. I never thought I would. And you notice it's not even ascended. I haven't even taken the time to ascend it because I will probably never, ever, ever use these again. But the main reason I'm using this is simply because when it comes to this event, you're affected by stun, poison, and slow. And the biggest issue is that slow. If you are affected by slow, when it comes to the time to reapply the defensive buffs, if you do not do that fast enough, he is going to get, the big guy over there is going to wipe you out with a quickness. So, alright, so jumping into the fight here, guys, this is really important to get your skills right here right out of the gate. So skill 1 for Haruhime is going to give everybody 33% SA gauge charge, with the exception of herself. She gives herself 111, which is just choice. She's going to be amazing here. Also, the other big thing she does physical resist and magic resist down 40%. That's going to be really, really, really critical, really awesome. That's going to basically give you a big turtle shell on your back so that you don't take a lot of early damage. That is also what we were talking about for turn 7, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Skill 2 here with Helga, we talked about this already. Basically, she's coming out of the gate with a 40% physical resistance debuff. It's the only debuff you're going to have on physical resistance until we get all 3 of her SAs off on turn 8. So, you kind of need it. Now, once again, I did talk about this before, but if you do not have the swap anklet with her, you could use the War Princess Ear Cuff and basically have her croak at the end of this turn. It's an alternative option. Those are a little easier to come by than the swap anklets, but if you don't have swap anklets, I would invest in those as soon as you can get enough scores in Record Buster to make that happen. Though, once again, with all the power creep we've had in Record Buster, you should. So, that's that. Now, Elmina. Elmina's an interesting situation here. Now, I'm going to use her skill 1 here. Attack all targets plus 40%. So all AoE attacks are going to be 40%. Also reduces the guard rate and the counter rate of the opponent, but the counter rate really isn't going to count here. And this buff is kind of fluff. It doesn't really do anything for us. We're not really worried about that buff. I mean, I could rebuff it every turn, but it's not really a terribly important buff. Remember, we're not producing damage here. We're literally trying to survive. It's a survival game, less a damage production game. Now, every debuff we can get out there produces damage. That'll be great for the late game. But for right now, for the first, I'd say 7-8 turns, you're really worried about just surviving. So it'll just be a little bit of a help in the long run. Now, Galamus, on the other hand, is skill 3. Single and all target down 40% is another big defensive buff. Remember, Haruhime gave the 40% physical and magic resistance. Galamus gives you 40% single and all target damage. So whether either one of those types of targets or types of attacks, they're down 40%. Either a physical or magic attack is already reduced 40%. This is another 40% reduction. It just helps us survive. This stun resistance, though, he gives. Stun resistance 100% is going to be super extra duper critical. Really, really, really important. Also does some self-buffing and all that stuff, and gives itself 3 additional actions, but really, the stun resistance and the defensive buff are the big things for this turn. Those are super, super, super important. Okay? Now, everybody gets their attack off, and it really, honestly, this stage of the game is the biggest difference between us just taking insane damage to these +2 units and basic survival. Now, when Melia comes into play, Melia is an interesting situation here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do skill 3 with Haruhime. That's going to restore 10% MP. It is a big single target attack, but it's not really that important. She's not blight buff. She doesn't have a magic buff yet. So honestly, it's just for the MP healing. Now, even though we are doing very little damage to this turn, I'm going to start targeting the big guy. Any single target attack you want on him, because single target attacks on the little guys, they are wasted. If you single him out and you do what I'm telling you to do, you'll kill him and them roughly about the same time. Otherwise, trying to take them out, you'll go another, dozen or more turns. I've heard people going up to 100 turns on this beast trying to take him out. So follow my lead here, guys. Much faster, much easier. Okay, so Haruhime, big single, but only for MP regen. Melia skill 2. Now, strength, magic, and dex down 45%. The strength and magic is the only one you really care about. On top of all the defensive buffs we've got, now we have an offensive debuff. Very nice. We should not take squat for damage. It'll be super duper important to keep that in play, and we'll get into what that means here in just a moment. Now, because that is for 4 turns? For 4 turns. So we have some time before we have to replicate that. Now, Elmina's going to go ahead and do her skill 3. That's going to give herself some big buffs. It's also a big single target attack, and it gives her her extra actions. Galamus, on the other hand, is also going to do skill 2. Super magic attack with temporary strength magic boost. Status buff down 2 turns. Sell 40% HP, or I'm sorry, 70% HP heal, and 70% in strength, 70% for 3 turns. Good skill. That's basically our spammable with him. That is going to be the skill that we spam almost constantly with Galamus until we need basically to rebuff his defensive skill. So, let's go. And the whole goal here with Melia is, once again, just like with Helga, is to get rid of her on this turn. Now, if she croaks, it is what it is. If she survives, she'll get swept away by the swap anklet. Well, once again, if you need her to die, you need to get out of the way, the War Princess Earcuff will absolutely do the job. Once again, guys, losing allies is not a big deal because we're not going for the S clear. We're literally just going for the AB clear to get the Iris rewards. That's it. So get this idea of like, well, I can't do it because I lose a unit. Nah, that's not a big deal. And even if it is, you can actually go do another run where you don't lose anybody, but it takes you 150 turns if you really, really, really want to get that A clear. Because remember, they're cumulative scores. You don't have to do all of those at once. Just saying. Just throwing that little knowledge nugget at you. So, turn 3. Turn 3, we're going to go back and we're going to do skill 1 with Haruhime. Notice her MP leaves a bit to be desired here. Haruhime's MP is extremely low, and this is going to take a huge chunk out of it. But worry you not. We're going to fix that here in a minute. But first, we're going to do that. Now, Lazar is just going to come in with his basic buff stat. That is going to be his skill 1. And Elmina, now that we've got her buffed up, I'm going to go ahead and go into her skill 3. That's a big single target attack, and once again, we are targeting the big guy. Now, Her skill 3, the reason we're doing this is because per physical attack damage, or per self strength buffs, which she has one of the adventure and the assist side, she's going to get 80% damage. And she's a giant killer, which means this is going to be a good hit. Galamus, on the other hand, his single target skill kind of sucks. So we're going to stick with AoEs for him. So we have Elmina attacking AoE, Galamus attacking single target, Lazar's going to start attacking single target too, and Elmina's going to go back and forth between those. Haruhime is really just here for support. Let's go. Now, you're probably wondering why I didn't use Galamus' skill 3 to add the defensive buff back onto Lazar. The main reason is because Lazar is max limit broken. I don't need it. If Lazar were not max limit broken, then I absolutely would recommend using Galamus' skill 3 again. Instead, I'm going to wait for his skill 3 to start basically fading away. See, on this turn, it's got 1 turn left, so I probably would be wise to go back and redo it now. Let's see what our other stats are here. So, we've got everything else is like 2 turns, magic resistance, physical resistance, and all that. So we're pretty good to go there for 2 turns. She'll probably need a rebuff. Nope, 2 turns till she needs one. And Haruhime is going to be good for a while. Now, that said, I do want to make sure that everything stays pretty well in play, but for now, I can actually do her skill 3, give her a little bit of MP regen, and take a reprieve for 1 turn, which is going to be pretty super critical. So, skill 3 for Haruhime. Skill 3 for Lazar. Now, I haven't discussed why skill 3 for Lazar. Skill 3 for Lazar, because we have a strength buff on our opponent. Once we see that strength buff, we got to get rid of it. That strength buff is going to hurt. Not the end of the world, but getting rid of it now would be wise. Now, while Lazar would be better in most circumstances to buff and then hit skill 3, the honest answer here is, guys, we're not here for damage, as I said. We're here for survival. Get rid of the strength buff, be happy. Okay? Once again, she's single target, and he's rebuffing. Let's go. Now, you notice thus far we haven't taken a huge amount of damage. In fact, Lazar's getting hit for zeros at this juncture. There is an argument to keeping the strength buff on your opponent for a few turns, so Lazar does take a little bit of damage, but I'm not about that life, personally. Now, everything's down to 1 turn, so this is going to be super, super, super important that I use Megiri. Haruhime needs to come out of the gate with Megiri. We need to make sure that we have all the buffs replicated at least through the end of turn 6. And I know this has 1 turn left, but remember, those are going to expire at the end of this turn. So we've got to use Megiri here. Strength buff is gone, so we're going to go back to skill 2 with Galamus. With Lazar, that's just going to be his basic buff skill. Elmina. Elmina could really use a rebuff here, so we're going to go ahead and take advantage of that. Galamus, on the other hand, just got rebuffs, so we're going to hit with an AoE attack. Let's go. So pretty straightforward at this point, guys. Now, if you're paying close attention, you'll start to see the pattern start to pick up here. While we've got pretty much a going thing happening here. Turn 6 is where it's going to get, where technically turn 7 is where it's going to get a little weird. So, Lazar's taking a bit of damage here, but we'll be fine. We'll manage. He is poisoned. Notice no one else is poisoned because everyone's going to have that ailment resistance buff at this point. So Haruhime is going to once again go back and do this skill. Everybody else's skill is going to be back at 2 turns for this, so we'll be fine. At the end of this turn, the buffs are removed, but we had to do that to make sure everyone had the buffs for this turn. So Haruhime skill 3, Lazar skill 2, Elmina can go back to skill 3, Galamus can stay at skill 2. Pretty straightforward at this point. There's not really any question or anything like that at this juncture as to what you're doing. It all is very logical. I would at least hope. All right. Now watch all my buffs disappear here at the end of this turn. So that is a big ailment, and I think that would have technically stunned you, but notice all our buffs are gone. All those little circles at the top. And what's the thing, I've heard about this before. I know this is a prettier picture here, but get used to running this with all of your icons on, because it'll give you a good idea of what buffs and debuffs and everything like that have been applied. Now, we do have some debuffs, but I'm not worried about those debuffs. The main thing is I've got to get the defensive buffs back in play. This is where I was telling you guys about the slow anklet. So, if Haruhime did not have that slow anklet, this skill, even though it's fast, would go after the other attacks. Even though it's a fast skill, it would go after the other attacks. And that means basically you're guaranteed to get wiped out here because we have no defensive buffs. We have the offensive debuff of 45%, but all our units are debuffed already. So we really need to make sure that we get those defensive buffs back on. So, plus it's going to give the SA gauge charge and all that stuff. But the main thing is that debuff. That debuff is hyper super critical. Okay, so skill 1. That takes me to Galamus. Is going to do his skill 3 again. Once again, for the defensive buffs and the stun resistance. All of that is super, super, super mandatory. You got to get that out. 100%. Now, let's go back to Elmina here. Elmina, well, she doesn't really necessarily need this at this point. So the all-target debuff and all that stuff is already in play. So we don't need her skill 1 anymore. Her skill 1 happens once. So we're going to go back to this right here because it gives the earth attack damage 100%. So she's going to go back to her AoE skill, skill 2. Lazar. Now, Lazar is going to need to rebuff, but here's the kind of trick to this, right? We don't have a strength buff in place, so we don't need skill 3. Earth resist and all that, single target damage plus and all that is already applied. Like, Lazar has already applied all that stuff. His extra 4 actions would be nice, so we could rebuff those. But I'll be honest with you guys. Actually, yeah, let's go and do that. Let's go and do that. Let's rebuff this. Yeah, I'm backtracking. We're going to do skill 2. And I'll show you why next turn, why we're going to do skill 2. We're going to do skill 2. I want that earth buff on him. The strength buff doesn't matter. But the earth buff, and some of you guys are going to kind of sense what's happening here. That earth buff is imperative. Now, notice both Galamus and Haruhime went before our foe because we were not slowed. If he had gone first, we would be dead. It would have been a devastating blow, and we would absolutely not have survived to this point. So, that is why I say that is absolutely imperative to have that the slow anklet on Haruhime and Galamus. Nobody else really matters. Haruhime and Galamus, it can be absolutely mission critical. Notice I don't even have a poison anklet on Lazar. I have the stun anklet on him because remember we didn't use the stun resistance, so that gave him the stun resistance for the first few turns. Now he's going to have it, and so he's probably going to get poisoned over and over again. But he's max limit broken, and we have counter heal, so ain't even worried about that. I ain't worried about you, Lazar. Now, one thing that's worth noting, we could have had a quad SA here had I given SA charge to Melia, but I'll be totally honest with you guys, it wasn't worthwhile. I only do a triple on this turn for one exceptionally good reason. He will go ahead and do his skill 1. Okay? Actually, strength buff skill. Nah. You know what? We'll go ahead and do skill 3 with him. Because even though we're not going to get the extra action out, that 120% with all the buffs he's about to get will be nuts. Absolutely bonkers. So we'll stick with that. In a perfect world, I would love to have given Melia the 33% and gotten a quad here. In a perfect world. But that's not the way this team is built. It just simply is not. I don't have enough MP with Haruhime. We had to run out of MP. The one thing that's really nice about this, check out this. Not only is she getting 120% strength magic, not only is she getting a now 44% buff on SA gauge charge, which is really nice. So, let's see. SA gauge charge gained by 44% for 3 turns. She also gets 4 extra actions, high HP heal, endurance, agility, dex, and ailment resistance plus 60%, and a 10% MP heal with full ailment cure. What can I say? She's nuts. Haruhime is bonkers. Once again, we're at the 120% there for that hit. And then with these two, we are going to do Elmina's SA. That's a self-strength 120%, which is kind of redundant. But physical resist down 60%. And she gets 4 extra actions. High earth physical attack with high critical rate. On all foes. It's an AoE attack. Galamus. Alter physical attack with temporary great strength boost. Removes status buffs. Oh, okay. So actually, I take that back. We're going to do Lazar's skill 1. I forgot Galamus did that. This is why sometimes it's important to read. So we're going to go do skill 1 here. Because he's going to remove the buffs. An ally's physical resistance, earth attack damage, counter rate, and status ailment resistance 70%. So in reality, I guess I didn't technically need the earth 100%, but it would have been nice. I mean, it's a little better buff than what Galamus gives Lazar. But yes, Lazar's skill 1 here is the right choice of action. So there's everyone buffed by Haruhime. Now, remember, Elmina and Galamus also, they both have the Giant Killer skill. So that's why their essays hit so much harder. So, here we go. He hit between 1 mil and 1.5, Galamus did. He doesn't get a percentage boost. He's not the end of the world. But it's helpful. It's helpful. We will essay with Lazar eventually, but not right yet. Not imperative yet. Follow me. Okay. So, everyone but Haruhime should now be up to 44% SA gauge charge. Okay? So, SA gauge charge 44%. She should still be at 111%. And she is. Now, everything's about to run out, so we will have to do Megiri this turn. Her MP just depleted almost entirely. But we need to do this. We really need to do this. And that means we're going to be like basically in MP like horde mode for the next few turns. We're going to like be struggling for MP for the next few turns. But it'll be fine. We'll make it work. Okay? So, I'm going to go back and do skill 2 here with Lazar. Just a good big single target attack. I'm going to go back to doing single targets with Elmina and go back to doing AoEs with Galamus. Galamus should have, let's see, 3 turns left on his extra action. She has 4 turns left on her extra action. So yeah, we'll just basically make this work. Now once again, we will need to replicate the buffs. There we go. If you don't replicate the buffs at least once after they're applied, I know some of the buffs from her SA, I mean, we probably could have waited the more I think about it, because I believe most of those are, well, most of those are like 3 turns, aren't they? Let's see. Yeah, most of those are 3 turns. So all the 1-turn things, like basically falling off, are extra bad for us. So we're going to go and do skill 3, and we're basically going to be in MP save mode with her. He's got no strength buff skills, so she's going to continue there. Or say Lazar's going to continue there, Amelia is going to continue there, and Galamus is going to continue there. Let's go. And basically, at this point, Haruhime is just rebuilding MP. There we go. There we go. Now, I vaguely remember our opponent here removing our buffs again. I vaguely remember it, but the last time I ran through this, I didn't see him do it. So I'm going to be very reactionary in regards to that. I'm basically going to use the next few turns just to spam skills and rebuild all that stuff. Now, Galamus, I may have needed to rebuff his main skill that turn. Let's go take a look at that. There we go. So let's take a look at the buffs after this turn. So you'll notice that basically we're not doing anything special at this juncture. We're literally just spamming skills at this point. Okay? I believe that was an ailment he was trying to apply. Alright, so 1 turn for everything here. So let's see. 2 turns for most of that, 1 turn for the strength, magic, and all that good stuff. So yeah, everything's golden there. So we'll go ahead and use Megiri. It would be nice to get the extra actions out, but I don't think it's necessary. Galamus lost his extra action. Hers is actually falling off. We can rebuff Galamus' extra action. Let's see. We have the strength and magic buff back, so we'll go ahead and do that. But I'll be honest with you, we're about to do another big SA, so I'm not going to worry about the extra actions at the moment. I could, I suppose, at least with Galamus here, the all-in single target buff, let's see, it'll stay in play. So we'll just do it for the extra actions. We'll rebuff his extra actions, but we definitely need Megiri to make sure things don't fall off prematurely. There we go. There we go. Let's see if our buffs get removed here. I vaguely remember them getting removed, but it may just be that I didn't buff properly and they fell off rather than being removed. Yeah, apparently they do not get removed again. So I was wrong in that regard. So that means, actually, we could go for a quad here. And that'd be really nice. Now, in fairness, if it weren't for the fact that all the buffs and debuffs are already in play now, Lazar going having his SA in this position would not be ideal. But all the buffs and debuffs are still in play. Nothing's really changed. So we can go probably 1, maybe 2 more turns, and we should be fine. Now, but we need a rebuff. Let's see here. 2 turns on all that. So no, I think we'll be fine. I think, honestly, if we do a little bit more MP regen with her, we do the second skill with him, single target with her, AoE with him. Did I got that right? Yeah. I think this will be fine. I think, emphasis on think, that we'll manage. Okay. Okay. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Now, so she gives herself earth damage 100%. So, let's see, does she already have earth damage 100% for 1 turn? And then all the other buffs are getting ready to fall off. So, if I rebuff this, she'll give herself the earth damage. That'll be nice. That'll be fun. We definitely could use that. She gets the extra actions there too, which I could have buffed before, but I'm not, wasn't really too enthused by that. I didn't think it was too imperative. So, and if you haven't caught on yet, this is kind of the exploratory portion of this, because this is slightly different than what I did with my last run. But all the buffs are still in place, so I think I'm in the happy zone here. So, with all the buffs that are getting ready to fall off, earth attribute damage, counter rate, ailment, resist, all that stuff is going to be reapplied by SAs. The only thing that isn't are the defensive buffs. And you'll notice that Haruhime's defensive buffs are gone. But I don't think we've needed them for a while. I think Galamus has had us covered. Now, I say that might get us killed. So I'm going to be a bit cautious here, and I'm going to do Sakuna. Only reason I'm going to do that, number 1, those defensive buffs. Number 2, those defensive buffs. So, here we go. Yeah. So, skill 1, skill 2, skill 2, skill 2. And the reason we're doing skill 2 with Elmina, and once again, just to clarify, is to get her buffs out. That is the number 1 reason. And then we'll do a quad here, and we'll see. I don't think a quad's going to clean up, but I think a quad is going to look really pretty. I think the results of that are going to be worth the effort. Ooh, that poison on Lazar hurts bad. So here we go. So I want to once again emphasize that the only thing that he's missing at this juncture is the strength and magic buff, and that's going to be reapplied. So everything else should be here. Earth attribute damage. Yeah, everything he needs is going to be applied. Now he'll get, let's see. So his SA is 100% per each target skill effect that increases damage single target. That's why we're using the single target assist instead of the AoE assist. AoE assist in some arguments could be better, but I'll be honest with you, I think his skill here is spectacular. Normally I wouldn't necessarily even bother with Haruhime's here, but I think she gets enough in her SA, it's going to be pretty super important. But Lazar should hit like an absolute monster here. Let's see what he gets. Did he not target the big guy? Maybe he was off screen. I didn't see the numbers. That's frustrating. That's frustrating. Oh no! We didn't even get to see the number Lazar produced. I didn't even know if it was worthwhile. That is devastating. It is what it is. So, we're back in MP save mode. Everyone's got their buffs for several turns. After doing this for 1 turn, we'll have to do it again, or we'll have to do Mirigi, or what is it? Yeah, Mirigi again, but it is what it is. He's going to go back over. Well, actually, we have a strength buff, so we'll go ahead and do skill 3, and we'll go ahead and do single target there and AoE there. Actually, let's see here. We've got 9 mil left there. And 17 mil up there. So yeah, we'll continue on this path. Let's go. So some choice hits out of our adventurers at this point. Absolutely choice hits. There we go. And if you're wondering why the debuffs weren't ever really a question, that's because Lazar buffs debuffs. He replicates debuffs with his skill 2, but I've never really, I've never had to worry about it because he just took care of business, honestly. Now, Haruhime, once again, like I said, we're going to do Mirigi, make sure nothing falls off here, make sure all the buffs are basically re-implemented. Skill 2, because we lost that strength buff with Lazar. Skill 1 with Elmina, and skill 3 with Galamus. Or, I'm sorry, skill 2 with Galamus. Thank you, skill 2 with Galamus. Let's see, his extra action actually has fallen off, and hers is good. So let's actually reapply his extra action to get a little bit more AoE damage out. Haruhime, there you go. There we are. And she, after one more run of the MP regen, she'll have just enough to redo that one more time. So I think we're good. I think we're right in the range of finishing these guys off here pretty quick. So we'll do this skill one more time, just in case. Everything's good there. We can actually reapply it next turn. Galamus will have his extra action. Everything will be happy here. Let's go. So once again, hopefully this is all making sense. We're very defensively bound with this team, which means we're not going to be getting any quick kills out of these guys. But at the same rate, this is how we win. This is how we have to fight this fight to make this worth our while. So we'll do Mirigi one more time. We're almost back at a double SA, and I might actually question if a double SA would be all we need to kill this. Let's do Mirigi. No strength buff, none of that. So let's see. Her extra action is 1 turn, so we'll go ahead and rebuff that. His extra action should be like 3 turns, 2 turns. So yeah, let's go. So we're getting really close to the end here. Really, really, really close to the end. So hopefully this has helped you guys out. If it has, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button. And this is a super long video. But, when it comes to these types of situations, you just can't rush these. These take time. And obviously when you're running this on your own, it's you could play a little less defensively than I've been playing, and try for some interesting stuff. Strength buffs back, so we're going to do that. Single target, AoE. Actually, let's see here. We've got 4 mil left, 2.5 mil left. See the strength and magic buff still there? Yeah. Let's do a double SA with these two, the 2 giant killers, and see what we get. Okay. 1.3. Galamus gets. Ooh. Okay. Okay. Not enough to wipe them out, but they're definitely reeling. Lazar will probably wipe him out, if not this turn, next turn. Yeah, looks like next turn Lazar's got him. So we'll do Lazar's single target. We'll do the 2 AoEs here. And I think I'm going to do Mirigi just one more time just to make sure that we don't need any more buffs after this. But I think that's it. Turn 21. Counter. There we go. Turn 21 win. Easy peasy. A clear. Nice. So there you guys go. Go get your Iris. I know it took me about a half hour to go through it, but I was also doing a lot of explanation and everything. Should take you about 10 minutes. No big deal. If you need any of the equips, we have a little more than a week. Go craft those equips. And also remember, there's a lot of damage left on the table for me because I haven't maxed out a lot of the new weapons and stuff like that. As you can see, I need to do a whole night of Alice farming. But That's it, guys. Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. Like, comment, share, and I will catch you all in the next one.